The crazy thing about ending birthright citizenship is that this is stolen land. Like, the Europeans, quite literally, trying to get rid of birthright citizenship is crazy because this is a foreign land, technically. Like, this isn't your native land. Your native land is in Europe. Like, the thing is, oh, you're going to end birthright citizenship, so if your parents aren't citizens, then you're not going to be a citizen if you're born here. Okay, so if you go far back enough, though, the Europeans' descendants weren't born here either. They were in Europe. This is not their land either. The only people native to the land are the Native Americans. The Europeans literally came over here, stole the land from the natives, and then enslaved another group of people. And then once slavery was over, they were like, okay, well, we're going to give birthright citizenship to the children of slaves. And that's all that really matters. Anyone else, we don't need you. And then from there decided, okay, well, you don't need to be in our country. Oh, you can be in our country. Oh, you don't, like, making up these things as if they were the ones who were native to the land in the first place. Like, oh, if your parents weren't born here, then you're not a citizen. Okay, but if your great-great-great-grandparents weren't born here, then technically wouldn't that have been the cutoff? Oh, no, it only matters because it's people who are brown. It's people who are not white at the end of the day. And that's really all it comes down to. So it's just like, we can see what you're doing. But the thing is, Europeans are not native to this land. So we need to figure out something with that too for birthright citizenship. Let's go back and see where we are originating from. Let's do that then.
Hi my loves, welcome back to the channel. It's your girl Prinnie Metz, and if this is your first time here, please don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss anything that we cover, right? So this next one is serious, right? The US Supreme Court has made a major decision that could change the future of a lot of families, right? They've ruled in favor of Trump on restricting birthright citizenship, and the reactions online have been crazy. Anyways, let's dive in and see what everyone is saying, and then we'll come back and talk some more.
Birthright citizenship was meant for the babies of slaves. Oh, okay, we're good then, right? We can stay. Ugh, no. Was the black that birthed you a slave? And I don't mean that new age slavery crap you're talking about with us only paying you pennies and minimum wage and not being able to afford things. Of course my mother wasn't a slave. Slavery supposedly ended a long time ago, right? See, so you're not a slave, even you admit it. So that means we can deport you up out of this country too. That's why we've been working on deporting people to countries that they weren't born in. You're gonna end up back in Africa. But I'm not from Africa. I've never been to Africa before in my entire life. Oh, I can't hear you over that plane that's ready to fly to Africa. Don't worry, once you land on the continent, you'll just become African again. And as soon as your feet touch Africa, all of your instincts will come back and you'll build spears and start hunting animals. It's all starting to come together. The puzzle pieces are there. I mean, you already said that demon, Stephen Miller, the chair, would want a country that doesn't resemble anybody other than white people. See, you're getting it. Now you blacks know that you're going back too. Can you start with the black MAGAs first? I really want to see how they'll react. Deal. I've been waiting to get them up out of here anyways.
When it comes to Black Americans, immigration, and citizenship, I've seen some very interesting takes and comments. One of them being people facetiously saying, oh, where are they going to deport me back to? Mississippi? Alabama? An actual video that I saw that was very alarming was someone saying, oh, they wanted us here. Excuse me? The only want plus here plus us equals to be used as chattel. It was as a result of resistance, us learning how to read, although that was illegal and could cost you your life, us pushing back, us fleeing oppression, that we were able to get rights, something they have never wanted for Black Americans, which is why the wealth gap is so huge, which is why we populate prisons over every demographic. No, you may not be deported to Alabama, but you may be Khalif Browder. Some of us couldn't even keep grandma's house, and y'all are going to convince me that you were able to still keep your great-great-grandmother, grandfather's birth certificate? Because that's what they're going after, the proof that your ancestors were actually born on this soil. not brought here.
The original Constitution from 1787 did not specify who is a U.S. citizen. The Constitution did give power to Congress to decide naturalization, but it was silent on birthright citizenship. At the time of our founding, citizenship was handled at the state level because of slavery. And then in 1857, the famous Dred Scott decision, the Supreme Court infamously ruled that no black person, free or slave, is a U.S. citizen, regardless if they're born in the United States or not. And then we got the 13th Amendment, abolishing slavery, and the 14th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, which was written to overturn that Dred Scott decision. All persons born in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States. The jurisdiction thereof was designed specifically for children of diplomats, children of people of invading enemy armies, and Native Americans who had their own tribal laws. And then in 1898, the Supreme Court established that U.S. citizenship applies to every person born within the United States of America. The famous case is Won Kim Ark, a Chinese national, gave birth in the United States, physically gave birth to a baby, took that baby home. That child tried to return as a U.S. citizen. The government stopped that child, but the Supreme Court said that child is a U.S. citizen because that child was physically born in the U.S., despite whether his parents were U.S. citizens themselves or not. And in 1924, Congress granted U.S. citizenship to every Native American born in the U.S. And for the last 200 years, the federal government and every state has recognized every person born in the United States of America to be a U.S. citizen, to get a passport, Social Security, birth certificate, federal benefits. Until Donald Trump showed up in 2025 when he decided all by himself that only people born in the United States to U.S. citizens or residents are U.S. citizens. Everybody else isn't. And here we are.
They got rid of birthright citizenship.
So what makes you an American citizen? Because last I checked, every American I know was born here on American soil. But if that doesn't make you a citizen, what does? And I think we know the answer to that. It's like we have the Riddler in charge, but every answer to his riddles is be white. That's what it feels like. Also, what about the kids born after this decision? Are they just men and women of no nations, like forced to wander the earth until they can reclaim the nation that was once promised to them? We might have a term for that already, but like, do you know what I mean? Like, what is it? It's like he made a generation, ironically, that doesn't go by the title of Americans. Like they don't respond to that title, that term. He made some trans Americans, is what I'm trying to say. What is going on? This doesn't. Why are we doing this?
Because they're trying to preserve their heritage, whatever that means. But in the meantime, they're just bringing us all down with them.
If we really wanted to ruin the empire, could we just ruin it somewhere else? Why does it got to be here, bro?
Wait, why didn't nobody tell me that birthright citizenship was meant for the babies of slaves? On the basis of that logic, we got to follow what Trump says, y'all. A lot of things have changed. If you don't have a musket, I can't tell me about the Second Amendment. Baby, if you're not pouring in, and I mean pouring it in, shoving that stick down and ready to shoot. So no more blickies, the Glocks, you're going to have to put them down. Yeah, sorry about that, folks, but Trump daddy said it's no more. Birthright was meant for slaves, for babies of slaves. So I'm sorry. We really got to start taking this stuff to heart now because, he knows so much about how this country was founded and everything. And honestly, at this point, we need to re-roll out the entire Constitution. Like, let's light this candle. Let's talk about the amendment number 8. We're supposed to be protected from cruel and unusual punishment. But every time Orange Guy gets on the screen, I'm feeling very cruel and punished.
Listen up. In 30 days, birthright citizenship is ending in 28 states. That means there will be millions upon millions of stateless babies with no paperwork and no place to call home. And you know what that means. It is an excuse to lock up these babies in detention centers too. Newborn babies growing in camps, prison, behind bars. This is a human rights crisis in the making. No baby should be stateless.
Trump wants to end birthright citizenship? What the hell is that? That is so anti-immigrant. And immigrants built this country. Well, I'm an immigrant. And do you know what else built this country? Laws with actual meaning. Birthright citizenship was not supposed to reward people who get in here just in time for delivery. But it's in our Constitution. So is our Second Amendment. You sure you want to go there? Listen, the 14th Amendment was created right after the end of slavery. It was not intended to give citizenship to tourists, influencers, or whoever just wants to give birth in this country. That is an exaggeration. These things don't happen. Oh, they don't? I'm going to give you just one example here. Ludmilla and Bruna Gonçalves, they're two Brazilian pop stars. And a couple of months ago, they came to Miami just to give birth to their daughter here and give her birthright citizenship. Like, they don't even live here in America. Like, they literally just did that, and they're not hiding it from anyone. So if celebrities are doing that, can you imagine how many agencies exist that actually do that? Well, I'm sure they have their reasons. We can't just judge people like this. This has been our problem. We have been too understanding. We see people breaking the laws, abusing the system, and we say, oh, I'm not going to say anything because I don't want to be judgmental, but we should. We can be pro-immigration and still say, this is not what this law was meant for. But this will hurt so many people. No, just the ones trying to game the system. I don't know if you know everything about this law, but if one of the parents is a legal resident, the kid still gets citizenship. So that is not anti-immigration, that is just anti-cheating. But still, being an immigrant doesn't mean you have to defend abuse. Being an immigrant means to actually defend the country that took you in before it's too late and there's nothing else to protect. And here's a list of so many other countries that don't have birthright citizenship. So maybe you can use your time and start pointing fingers to them as well.
Donald Trump just won one of the biggest wins that he's ever won. You ever notice that when Donald Trump tries to implement any of the policies that he ran on, some random judge from somewhere will just pop up out of nowhere and start interjecting with their ideas? Well, those days are over. The Supreme Court just ruled in favor for Donald Trump against all of these judges. So now Donald Trump can finally get more important policies passed in this country without any issue or blowback. One of them being birthright citizenship. A lot of people are very ignorant in this country. They don't even know why birthright citizenship was created. It was created to ensure equal rights to formerly enslaved people after the Civil War. Not for people to come to this country and use it as a finesse tool to become an American citizen. That is not why it was created. And it should have been gone a long time ago, if I'm being honest. Things are finally going to start getting done around this bitch. Even though Donald Trump has been doing a damn good job, considering that every time he tries to get any of his policies done, somebody over here pops up with how they feeling. Oh no, I have an idea, and that judge over there wants this, and that judge over there all of that's over. God bless America.
So I don't know if y'all saw the recent Supreme Court ruling. I'm sorry, I'm trying not to cry. But they sided with the Trump administration on nationwide injunctions, which was preventing birthright citizenship. Which was preventing Trump's birthright citizenship executive order from going in effect. And so essentially it's a 30-day pause before whatever guidance they put out will go in effect, which essentially means that you can't do a nationwide injunction to curtail some of his executive orders, which essentially means that it puts 250,000 children. It puts 250,000 children in limbo. And we know that they don't want to stop there. They've already been trying to position to put U.S. citizens in foreign jails, which we know a lot of that will be Black and brown people. And the Supreme Court basically said that they can rewrite the Constitution unilaterally. So it seems the only way to protect yourself or your child, and like, I'm trying not to cry, but as a mom, it's hard to imagine you not knowing if your child is safe. Citizenship is like the bedrock of the Constitution. If you're born on the land of the United States of America, you're a citizen. So for the court to put out this order and then not even comment on the merits, which essentially puts all us in limbo, it takes years to get to the Supreme Court. That means you can be a citizen in California, but you might not be a citizen in Texas. And we've already seen them use the National Guard to go and usurp the governor of California. And the courts have already ruled in that situation that they have the ability to usurp the governor and use the National Guard if they feel like it. And we all read that executive order where he wants to do that. So you could essentially have ICE agents going into hospitals and ripping children from their mom. Where does that stop? He's starting with immigrants. But we know that's not their goal. The architect of all this was the Heritage Foundation with the use of Stephen Miller, with the idea that immigrants were making the country more diverse. In order to fill that diversity, you have to essentially remove that population from the country. So now it's immigrants. Next, it might be nationalized citizens. Next, it might be Black Americans. And like, the 14th Amendment was made specifically because there were a bunch of slaves that did not have a place, that weren't U.S. citizens. So they had the 14th Amendment so that all people would be citizens. And essentially, all that's in limbo, as well as all of the other nationwide injunctions that were put against the Trump administration are now in limbo. The only option, it seems now, is to have a class action lawsuit, which takes a long time to farm, and you literally would have to have your name on that lawsuit to have any kind of form of protection. And there's no telling that the Trump administration won't argue that that class action lawsuit, that class, isn't illegal. Because let's say if you're not a legal citizen here, then what's preventing them from saying that you don't also benefit from our laws and the ability to have class action lawsuit? I'm so sorry I did this crying. Like, I just can't imagine. And this is the reason why it goes back to, like, I don't understand why we can't have bold leadership in the Democratic Party. Do you see how far Republicans are willing to go? We don't have anybody on our side that is willing to go this far to protect rights. To protect rights. These people are going so far to rip away rights. Why don't we have any kind of leadership that is coming out to protect rights? Why not? Y'all tell me what y'all think about all this in the comments. Again, I apologize for all the crying. I did not mean to do that. It's just that I wanted to make this video to make sure other people are aware that essentially the Supreme Court has sided with Donald Trump, and in 30 days, everything just falls in limbo when it comes to birthright citizenship. Citizens, United States citizens, Black people, white people, we're not safe in this country because it starts with the immigrant. Then where does it go? We all know this story. It starts with one group to see how you will accept it. Then they next target the next group. Then they target the next group. Then they target the next group. But like I said, y'all tell me what y'all think about all this in the comments, and I'll see y'all in the next one.
So here's what's going on, right? Traditionally, under the 14th Amendment, anyone born on U.S. soil automatically becomes a U.S. citizen, right? That's what we know as birthright citizenship. But now the Supreme Court has backed a move from Trump that redefines who qualifies. Based on this new direction, it looks like a child born in the US will only be granted citizenship if both their parents are already US citizens. And this has, obviously sparked a massive conversation online. Some people are saying that this is long overdue, that too many people have, been taking advantage of the system by flying into the US just to give birth, to their children just so that they can get citizenship. But other people are, they're worried, and for real reasons, right? I mean, what happens to babies born in the US whose parents are immigrants, right? Or undocumented? Are these children going to be considered illegal? Will they get deported? Will they end up in detention centers? Right? And there's even talk about how this could especially impact Latino families, right? And how historically Black Americans are the only group that gained citizenship through the 14th Amendment after slavery, which adds a whole other layer to this debate, right? The internet is split. Some people see this as a necessary reform, while others are calling it dangerous, inhumane, and some people are even saying that it's unconstitutional. Please let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section. Do you think that this is, something that has to be done, that really is long overdue? Or do you think that Trump is, just doing too much at this point? Please let me know what you think, and yeah, we'll continue the conversation in the comment section. It's credit to all creators who were featured, and thank you so much for tapping in when you saw this video, and I'll see you on my next one.
The Supreme Court just allowed Trump to partially implement his executive order to end birthright citizenship, and this can go in effect in the next 30 days. And the way the Supreme Court did this was by saying that federal judges do not have the authority to always issue nationwide injunctions to block a particular policy. In the birthright citizenship case, judges from Massachusetts, Maryland, and Washington state issued nationwide injunctions on Trump's January 20th executive order to end birthright citizenship. And what Trump basically did was take this issue all the way to the Supreme Court and ask the Supreme Court to consider whether federal judges have the authority to issue these universal injunctions. The Supreme Court ruled today that federal judges have limited powers in doing so. Now, before this decision, federal judges had the authority to block harmful policies nationwide, even if only a few people brought the case. That power is gone now, unless individuals are part of a class action suit. So now what this means is that Trump's executive order can go into effect in states that did not challenge the executive order. That means if you live in one of 22 states, including Washington, D.C., you are protected because lawsuits from those states have filed against the administration. In the other 28 states, Trump's order won't be blocked. And the only way it would be locked is if in the next 30 days, litigation moves forward from those states. And this is really critical because if you're in a state where you don't have protection from this executive order, a baby born in a particular state may not be a U.S. citizen at birth, while the same baby born in another state would be. That's why this ruling is so significant. It creates legal uncertainty over something that used to be clear and automatic. Beyond this case, though, this case set precedent for how federal judges can block all kinds of policies. This really weakens the judiciary's ability to check the executive branch, especially for fast-moving policies that impact a lot of people at once, like a Muslim travel ban, healthcare mandates, deportation orders, or even restrictions on religious gatherings. Now, what does Trump's executive order say with respect to birthright citizenship? The order says that children who are born to mothers who are undocumented in the U.S. or who have temporary legal status in the U.S. and to fathers who are not citizens or permanent residents would not gain citizenship. So if you're undocumented or in temporary lawful status and expecting a child in the United States, it's important to talk to an immigration lawyer, particularly if you live in a state that is not protected from the enforcement of the executive order. Now understand that the law has not changed. The Constitution still includes birthright citizenship as part of the 14th Amendment. But what this ruling does is make it easier for future executive orders to move forward, despite the fact that they clearly conflict with the Constitution. Now, this issue will almost certainly go back to the Supreme Court, possibly next term, and the legal challenges with respect to Trump's executive order on the merits is still going forward. Feel free to save this post and share it with others who might be impacted, and follow us for more immigration news and information.
Who would have thought that if you're born in a country, you might not actually be a citizen of that country? Well, in all the countries here that are red, you're not a citizen of that country if you're born there unless your parents were citizens. Isn't that crazy? In the United States, South America, Canada, like a lot of places in our side of the world, and the western side of the world, it's birthright citizenship. Like if you are born there, you have that right to be a citizen. You are automatically a citizen when you were born in that country. But for a lot of the rest of the world, the old world, I guess, for lack of a better phrase, and Australia, that's not how it is. If your parents were citizens, then you're a citizen. That's really interesting. That's very different than how we think over here in the western half of the world. That's really interesting. What do you guys think about that? Do you think it should be that way? Or do you think people who are born in a different country shouldn't necessarily be a citizen of that country, but it should instead be the citizen their parents are citizens of? What do you think? Let me know in the comments. I'm curious to see what everybody has to say about it. And let's have a little discussion about birthright citizenship.
Conversation around birthright citizenship is so intriguing to me because I've studied this historically. I've taught this in government classes, and its intended purpose was to protect African Americans and the children, the babies of African Americans from the status of slavery. And now we're talking about it because of non-citizens, because of illegal immigrants, because of undocumented immigrants. Since the court case that happened yesterday with Trump v. Casa, I feel like this conversation is really heating up. It is needed. This conversation is so needed. We truly need the Supreme Court to decide who this was truly intended for. 14th Amendment's original intent was to protect formerly enslaved African Americans, to protect their children, granting them citizenship. And today we see the context of the 14th Amendment being stretched way beyond its initial context. Seen under the Biden administration, they failed miserably at protecting our borders, allowing illegal immigration to persist, crossing ports of entry, overstaying their visas. And we see that some of these illegal immigrants are having children. And in a lot of cases, these illegal immigrants who are having children in the United States are able to benefit off of government assistance. Obviously, we see that the 14th Amendment is being exploited because there's this collision of illegal activity reaping the benefits from our Constitution that was meant to protect us. And this is what we're going to see the Supreme Court decide in months to come. Does the 14th Amendment guarantee legal citizenship to children of parents with illegal status? And let's not pretend that this conversation is foreign, because globally, most of the world either one, does not grant citizenship automatically to children born of undocumented parents, or two, they may grant citizenship depending on the legality of the parent within the country.
This shouldn't even be a conversation. I don't even know what we're debating, right? And to be honest with you, it's not even a debate. This is obviously a loophole that has been left open intentionally by liberals and Democrats for what reason? I don't know. Maybe it's laziness. But then when you combine it with the fact that there was an egregious amount of people, it was almost like a flood. The floodgates was open, the dam broke, and you had an influx of more, probably tens of millions of illegal migrants, most of which we can't even estimate who really came over here, coming to the United States of America, which at the time was being enforced in multiple different states that you couldn't even really move around. During a time where the pandemic was happening, it just seems even more disrespectful to the majority of the people here in the United States of America that the 14th Amendment shouldn't even exist anymore, because there are no more slaves and no more people that need to be legal based off of slavery.
They wouldn't even say if birthright citizenship was constitutional. Are you out your fucking mind? Because in another 6-3 Supreme Court decision where the Supreme Court takes the Constitution, wipes their ass, hands it to you, and tells you to take a picture, the court has ruled that the executive order that overrules birthright citizenship can go into effect in certain areas because nationwide injunctions issued by federal judges apparently overstays their power boundaries. So Trump can go over his power boundaries, but the judges can't to stop him. Fucking great. Federal injunctions prevent immediate harm from shit that's unconstitutional. That's the fucking point. And now, they still get to go into effect until a court actually strikes them down. Surely the guy who's only known for issuing unconstitutional shit and blowing past his power standards won't abuse that power, right? If you're a MAGA chuckle fuck who's cheering for this because Trump won, thank God you've been spared the burdens of intelligence. You're not safe either, Cletus. Guess what? In 3 years, when we have a Democratic president again, they can take your fucking pew-pews day goddamn one, and there's not shit you can do about it. You'll have to sit around and twiddle your thumbs while you wait for the courts like a good little boy.
With MAGA's excitement of the Supreme Court limiting nationwide injunctions about birthright citizenship, it also makes me remember their perspective on other amendments, not just the 14th Amendment. It also makes me think about the 13th Amendment, which is about slavery and forced labor. And it also reminds me that under the 13th Amendment, if somebody is imprisoned or have had their rights forfeited for whatever reason, it's legal to have them do forced labor. And so my thought process is understanding that MAGA and Project 2025 has been working for the ending of birthright citizenship. It also makes me aware of the fact that all of the ICE raids, all of the camps that they are making, along with the birthright citizenship ending or being at risk, are precursors to their plans of enslavement. And it's interesting because Trump said the quiet part out loud. This is coming from an article. President Donald Trump celebrated the Supreme Court decision Friday that will allow his administration to end automatic birthright citizenship in some cases, calling the ruling a huge one. The president said birthright citizenship, enshrined in the Constitution's 14th Amendment shortly after the Civil War, was meant for the babies of slaves. It wasn't meant for people trying to scam the system, Trump said. Hundreds of thousands of people are pouring into the country under birthright citizenship, and it wasn't meant for that reason. Appearing in the White House press room with the president, U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi echoed the president's remarks and thanking the justices for their decisions, blah, blah, blah. And it's just interesting that he is trying to justify his thoughts under the guise of advocacy for the enslaved people, while he's turning around and doing the exact same thing to other populations of people.
So the Supreme Court has just given Trump a big win when it comes to birthright citizenship. In a 6-3 ruling in Trump v. Casa, the Supreme Court gave Trump the green light to move forward with one of his most controversial executive orders, and it's got massive implications for immigration, along with citizenship and executive power. So the order in question is Executive Order 14160, and the opinion is by Justice Amy Coney Barrett. So the court didn't rule on whether the executive order itself is unconstitutional. What they actually ruled on is whether lower courts can block federal policies for everyone in the country, not just people who sue. And the court said no. The executive order at the center of this case redefines who gets U.S. citizenship at birth, excluding some children born in the U.S. if their parents aren't legal residents. And lower courts had blocked it nationwide. They call it nationwide injunctions. But the Supreme Court just overruled them, allowing the order to take effect for millions of people who aren't directly part of that lawsuit. In short, if the individuals don't sue, the lawsuit can still affect them even if it's unconstitutional.
Donald Trump can end birthright citizenship. Why can't Zohran Mamdani make the buses free?